Welcome to the Workplace Wellbeing Essentials series. I'm Mari Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of Advancing Wellness. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this expert interview where we explore topics that impact employee well-being. My guest today is Mache Seibel. Dr. Mache Seibel helps women in and around menopause figure it out so they don't have to tough it out. Dr. Seibel is one of America's leading voices on women's wellness and menopause. He is a highly sought-after health communicator and keynote speaker who combines health information with original music, humor, and stories that emotionally capture the audience and holds their attention while the medicine goes down. Welcome, Mache. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Well, it's my pleasure to join you, and this is an important topic, and we're talking about this topic in the context of an important meaning, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, great. I'm delighted, and I'm fully prepared in case things get a little bit warm here. So let's...
You know what? So am I.
Well, there you go. So we're ready to go. All right.
We've got some of our biggest fans with us.
We do have our biggest fans here. There we go. So, it's so interesting today because, if we think about the U.S. workforce, nearly half of that workforce is made up of women.
That's
so
right.
It's a huge part of, the workforce here in this country. And yet so often the topic of women's health is either underappreciated or just not talked about. So we want to bring a little bit of this out into the open today.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about this whole idea of menopausal symptoms and, what their impact is. Are people getting the treatment they need? Take us through what the current situation is.
Well, the current situation is quite interesting in that it is really a time of need and not a time of really application. If you think about it, it's very ordinary for a woman to have a baby and then get a maternity leave. Mm-hmm. Of course, it wasn't ordinary many years ago, but today that is a common practice. And yet 15 or 20 years later, when that woman is transitioning into and through and beyond menopause, there's no specialized awareness or acknowledgement that this is a special time in a woman's life. Mm-hmm. And it's a very important time. If you just look at it in terms of one very common symptom, hot flashes, we were joking earlier about hot flashes, but if you think of the term hot flashes, it's one of the common symptoms. Mm-hmm. And in one study of 500,000 women who were Fortune 500 employees, and half of them were treated for hot flashes and the other half had hot flashes, but they weren't treated. Mm-hmm. That 250,000 women who weren't treated had 1.5 million more office visits going to the doctor for medical care during 12 months of time at a cost of $400 million. Mm-hmm. And if you amortize that cost to the millions of women who do have moderate to severe hot flashes in society, we're talking about a cost for hot flashes alone of $14 billion with a B dollars. Now we're talking about one symptom. And when you look at like the Healthcare Cost and Utilization Project, the HCUP, they figure that probably around 17.5% of the GDP is healthcare related. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the top 20 of the symptoms, that includes things like osteoarthritis, things like acute myocardial infarction or cardiovascular atherosclerosis or cardiac arrhythmias, cause of death, problems, diabetes, hip fractures. These are all symptoms highly overrepresented in menopausal women, and yet we give no acknowledgement to it, and it's totally underrepresented in the workplace, affecting the quality of their life and the quality of their work. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, I'm just finding those numbers to be staggering. It's amazing that they are, so large. And we have to remember that the role that employers play in this country with healthcare. So they're, understandably, and especially in those particular industries where they may have a large percentage of women in their workforce, these costs are real costs to those employers.
They're very real costs, and it's not only the cost of going to the doctor. You're talking about issues, a time of life when women are being deprived of sleep, and so they're coming often to work when they're tired. Their performance could be affected. You have the example, I had a woman who came in to see me, Jane we'll call her, and she came in, she was having difficulty with fogginess of her thinking, she was tired and exhausted, she had a big project done, she did all the work for the project, she really busted her tush to get this project done on time, and she forgot to turn it in. And so here's what happens, we're dealing with a problem that is real, that is impactful, and yet it's a problem for which women often don't want to talk about it. They're afraid they'll be viewed as older, or they'll run into ageism or other kinds of isms that could be present there. And it creates a dilemma for women in the workplace. And really there has to be more done for women to let them reach their potential, because here they are at a time of life with great wisdom, great experience, knowledge, and capability. And yet, women in the 45 to 55 demographic are an age group, even though they're increasing in numbers, they're the age group that is actually also dropping out of the workforce because of the challenges that are being underappreciated in the workplace.
So I'm curious, what is it that, what role can an employer play in supporting women's health? We often have the situation where, as you say, folks don't want to be kind of categorized, or we don't want this to be kind of public. And we certainly want to protect personal health information in the workplace because we're required to do that. So what role can the employer play in supporting their female, members of the workforce actually, around this topic?
Well, I think the first is to understand that it's menopause and perimenopause, that window of years leading up to menopause, is not about age. First of all, it's about transition, because let me just say that between 5 and 10% of women are going to enter menopause before age 45. And we're going to have symptoms 10 years before that. And 1 in 100 women is going to go into menopause at less than 40. So if that is the case, with symptoms starting 10 years before, a woman could be in her 20s or late 20s, in her 30s, and certainly in her early 40s and having these symptoms. So menopause isn't about age, it's about transition. So we have to first get age out of it. That's not the point. But to address the question that you asked, there has to be part of the curriculum of the business has to be to provide menopausal information. I know myself that when I go into companies and talk to them, I know that there's a great interest on behalf of the women. And you don't have to single the women out to go. You can talk to the men as well, because men often would be more sensitive if they had any inkling of what was going on. You can't blame a person for ignorance, but they can still cause consequences. So some of it is to make awareness to the workforce of what's going on and to have opportunities to overcome this. And some of it could be in the form of flexible time. Some of it could be time that's worked at outside of the office, maybe at peripheral offices or home offices where people can take breaks for when they need. There has to be more control of the cooling systems in the building, or even having having a seat near a window that you can actually open if you need to, bathrooms that are available, a whole host of things that can be done and should be done to give women equal footing in this situation and provide equal understanding for the men who are there so they can be more sensitive to it, because it can be embarrassing and awkward and uncomfortable. And, that's what we want to avoid for these women who are facing their own challenges.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier about sleep. One of the things that we find when we're doing assessments with employers is we often find that in some cases, a majority of a workforce is sleep deprived. They're not getting the recommended 7 hours of sleep a night. And I would suspect that a lot of this may be issues for women. Can you talk specifically about, menopause and sleep?
Well, sleep is one of the top 3 or 4 things that women complain of. And, it's a big problem. Women have trouble sleeping for a variety of reasons. Some of the reasons are their partners who might be snoring or having other issues.
Or the dog.
Or the dog, or, many other things. But we live in a stressful world, and stress and anxiety are contributors. Depression, some people when they're depressed sleep all the time, but other people who are depressed are rather agitated and really can't sleep. You have the issue of hormones being low. Estrogen is responsible for some of the restorative sleep patterns in the sleep cycle, and those things get shortened in the absence of estrogen. You have the issue of sensitive bladder, because women will be up at many times at night running to the bathroom. You have the issue of restless leg, a condition where the leg jumps just spontaneously, waking them, or their partner can have that and cause them to wake. You have the issue of hot flashes that can occur at night, calling them night sweats, and they can keep the woman up. There can be the heat and temperature intolerances that lead to sweating and drenching your gown and being unable to sleep and have to get up and change your sleep. Basically, there are a lot of things competing with your disease for sleep, and all of these have solutions that can be addressed in addition to, the normal anxiety and stress that many people feel that contributes to poor levels of sleep.
Wow. It's amazing. Anybody's getting any sleep with all of those possibilities. So that's amazing.
A lot of them aren't, a lot of them aren't. And that's contributing to this, the workplace issues. It's one of a cluster of things that together create a very large hammer on the workforce, making it challenging.
So if our audience wants to learn a little bit more about your work or wants to be in touch with you, how can they find where you are?
Well, there's 2 ways, if I can share. One of them is that my website is drmache.com, and drmache.com. And I also, if people are interested in a site that I put together in order to help you get information and to take you through a window, you can go to Bloom90, BLOOM90.com. And you can get information there for a boot camp I put together that covers people virtually with live calls to help you.
Those are great resources. That's wonderful. Well, thanks so much for taking some time today to explore this interesting topic, one that has huge economic impact for our country and certainly for employers. So I just want to thank you again for your time. It's always great to spend time with you.
Thank you for taking time to have me on. I appreciate it. Thanks so much.